Man, here's another one of those times that I seemingly sit, it's been more than an hour, looking at this picture. And I probably shouldn't have took a nap, for I did and came back to it and had a whole different view, like quite often I do at different angles. So, look at this, guys. Let's just start off, primitive, whatever, and do things. This is Fred Flintstone's mall. You remember the Flintstones? They had stone wheels. Drive up to the drive-thru and eat a rib brontosaurus type thing. Think about that as I just go off for a minute, for we're going to go into the article that this is about. But I decided I guess it's more than an hour ago, that I would talk about something, and then before I got a chance to start, was interrupted, and this, that, and the other. When I came back to it, I'm hitting it from a different angle because of what went on right there in comparison to what I was thinking about whenever I went back to it. And I was like, oh snap, well, you could hit it like this, or you could hit it like that. And I don't want to make a series where we sit and stare at this thing and I tell you different stories of what this could be, or something silly like that. For some of my old series and stuff that I turned off now, because most of it was facing me with occasional inset pictures, and it's really not about me and what I think or what I'm wearing that day, but the information that I'm trying to tell somebody. And some of those old ones look like I'm trying to be some kind of new age evangelist or some kind of crap like that, and that's not me really in any way, shape, or form. I was just trying to come at it from more of a smiley standpoint. That was used against me one time, and anybody that's been on my channel realized that that's not even a representation of what I usually bring. It depends on what I'm talking about and the mode that I get in, and I get outside on a spring day and butterflies start landing around me and things, and I might have a different demeanor going on, and of course what I'm thinking, been through and stuff like that. But I try to not make this really about me. But quite often I can't, because experiences that I went through and things that showed me, and it kept being in my face all the time, is the reason it drove me to this point. And in some ways, I want to tell you things that I've learned, not like a, ooh, look what I know, but more of a, ooh, look what we should all have been taught, and look at all these things that we never knew. And when I talk about it gets you and everything, I don't know, Flintstones were going on whenever I was a baby, so I grew up with this idea of these Flintstones, right? And the Flintstones, whenever I was a kid, kind of got to believe that, well, right back before the Bible started, we were the Flintstones, right? And they were making fun of how, it's a modern-aged family from the town of Bedrock, and all these little statements that were in there, and it's just weird, but they were just making up a tune, right? And where did they get inspiration from? It must have come from, and I've gone through that so many times later, but there's this conspicuous thing where they wear these big hats, and they have horns coming out of them. They have this whole society that's a secret society kind of thing built around it, and a grand poobah, and the Order of the Buffalo, and all these things like that. And it was kind of a royal purple blue. And whenever I got older, I was like, what the hell, and that's happened more than 1,000 times, and it just keeps happening. And then I even have looked back at some old stuff, and there's some of it, here's some, and it's not just sacred geometry or things along that line, but it's all kinds of symbolism and everything. And because of what I've studied, it just keeps showing me in the face. So I thought about sitting here and telling you a story about what somebody might have told their kid that was living here. Doesn't this look like the sun? Think about that for a minute. And what they might have told their kids and how they passed on things, and that had been told and told to their grandkids, and they might have planted something out here, or they might have had some dwelling thing that burnt down, and the kid made some lament about it, and the guy walked the kid out here again and go, look at all these flowers and everything growing up out of the ashes, and might make a representation to something from the ashes and pull a phoenix idea, an idea that an iconography that is all around him with symbolism of the hawk and the falcon and things that he knows, and try to make a children or a child at ease. But there are certain stories that seem to make children at ease, but whenever you get adult and you keep thinking, there's that problem again. Different situations arise. But there are certain things that have been kept for so long, it's not even funny. Did you ever notice this thing has a moat around it? And it kind of has a hex shape, like a stop sign, and there's a piece missing where people come in, and if I told you this was taken from an aerial photograph, and then they painted, like in Star Wars where they do a background on a glass mat, but somebody that did something of near that quality, and an idea that's concepts of the people that worked with this area, what this looked like. So you see all this smoke coming out of these places, and human activity. And if you look real close at all, there's all these little black dots that are in here, little ants. And those are people. And way back when they showed this picture, I thought it said Jason, Jasen, right here. And that made me think all kinds of things that I could go off for an hour about too. But look at this kind of chink, 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 but then cut off. And then what's this? That's strange. So it's 3/4 kind of built, kind of a crescent kind of deal. Yeah, but it looks kind of like an eyeball, doesn't it? And I could probably make up a bunch of stuff, even out of things that you know somewhat about, and just start making up a bunch of bullshit about this place. But this isn't the Flintstones. They date the place looking like this around 2000 BC. The site dates to around 3600 BC, and then sightings, smaller places, not this, associated with this, date all the way back much further. And this isn't too far away from certain places that people know about. Well, one of them just north of there, I don't know, what is it, 60 kilometers, blah, 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 is Chelyabinsk, where the asteroid came in and blew up in the atmosphere and shattered out all the windows and caused a little problem. And I talk about that in some of my videos. What the hell am I getting at? Sometimes I wonder myself, people, for there has to be a direction, but it looks kind of funny when a spider's building a web. But you got to leave some parts of it alone sometimes, and then come back and build it. And whenever you come back and build it, you can look at it a bunch of different ways. But when you come back, it'll become apparent what you have to do to fix it. And this looks like a jumbled mess of little spurs and things going off, but if you really look close at the human eye, there's little streaks that cut in and things like that that are real cool looking. I mean, almost like, looks like a cosmos, and that quite often, and I wish I found some clip to throw in here right now where they zoom in on somebody's eye and turn it into that, but you can get the idea. But you get a sun symbology, and you kind of saw the Flintstones mall and things like that. But if I was to tell you that there's an old Wild West town that looked like this and everything, you wouldn't get that out of this. But if I had told you it had more to do with the old Wild West than you had to do with the old Wild West, that would seem odd. And it would go with that story with that kid thing in the old folklore, but that'd be going way off in left field again, and I'm trying to get back to the center of my web here. And if you'll look, this thing's kind of built like a web. Webs have certain directions, but also quite often spiders are using exact certain points to hinge point that web to even start in the first place, and then build off of that, and then somehow magically, all from instinct of the brain of a little bitty thing, they make this symmetrical pattern that goes on. But then whenever humans that have a brain that's just a little bit bigger make symmetrical patterns, people quite often just ignore the shit out of it. And sometimes people notice some of it later, and then other times people will notice some and agree upon it. But then someone that's all steeped in that knowledge, say archaeoastronomy and things like that, will find all kinds of connections, and people will tar and feather that guy and throw him in this moat that used to be here, mentally and pretty much physically. And then years later you might find out, oh hell, that dude was, well, yeah, some of his stuff, but we're not sure, and let's go vague. Let's be real vague about it. And if we get vague at enough points about it, then it'll just, man, there can be enough conjecture said about it that you just, and just like the fog that's coming in from the right on this picture, it all just goes away. And we'll show you a picture of what this place looks like now, and it's almost a place that just went away. And magically it was found only from an airplane. And there are things that can go with that, like Nazca lines and stuff. You can only see it from the airplane, but there are things like this that can only be found from Google Earth, because walking around, people went through here for a long time. There's a little path that went through here and stuff, and little cattle trails and stuff they've been doing over a long time. But there hadn't been occupation for a long time, and they found it. And there's a lot of places connected to this. But if I told you in ancient times a river ran into this thing, making that moat, and it was higher ground and swooped around it and went back out, that'd be kind of cool. And because of that gapping, people found a way in because of that gapping. That'd be cool. Only that in reality, that's not what happened here. But there have been places found that are great places like that, and they build a mound in the central point of it, and they're safe on that mound until this river floods so much that, just much like that wind, but far more destructive, it takes and just wishes it away. And there were people that we think of now much more like the Indians of old, and they were much more in harmony, what we profess to believe about them as a collective. Whenever we investigate, you find out many varieties of a theme, of a concept. I'm not going to go into it, but we have this idea, this shamanic harmony with nature idea. Almost you can see that in Avatar, where they had these people that were, kind of in tune, and these people came in from a whole different age that are just much more advanced. Well, it didn't take much back then to get much more advanced. I mean, things like the Hyksos, and all they had to do was come down there with horses and chariots in a land that didn't have horses and chariots before. And wow, Well, there's a little more to it than that. They also had advanced bows and metallurgy and just all kinds of things. But they, don't want to give so much credit for things. And let's get vague about that too, and because that has a whole lot to do with these stories that are over here that these people have religion about, and got to avoid that one. See, because butthurt if it's not exact because you were told it was, and if it's not just exact, then oh my God. Well, oh my gods. There's plural on that, and it has to do with a whole lot more. And what's been deemed as pagan is really the roots of where any of that comes from. And we have so much of it today active in what we do that people don't even recognize. And some of this stuff that was sacred knowledge, like geometry and things, that was only kept for the certain ones and all these things, and people died for it, now is just taught in schools. And if I told you that this looked a lot more like a wheel, that'd be pretty cool. You can even see a central hum and an outside, and it's like a broken wheel, kind of. If I told you somebody in ancient times, cart broke down here, Fred Flintstone's cart broke down here, and they built a monument to it, and then later people deified Fred Flintstone, and they made a monument around it. What would you think about that? If I told you Fred Flintstone was Cro-Magnon man and something like that had happened, you'd have a hard time going with it. If you haven't watched any of my videos, you'd have a real hard time. If you haven't watched any of my videos, you're probably having a hard time staying with me, and I'm sorry if you click off. Don't want you to, but let's continue. You look at the spurring of the inside of this, and it's not done in a collective or cohesive manner, and you would think they just didn't have it quite going on structurally, and somehow they went with a round thing and blah blah blah. But if I was to tell you the center of this was based on a number 33 that we know that's real famous, and the outer ring of this is 108, and this whole thing is huge because those little Grangerites are people, and this is over 20,000 square foot of an area, and quite the mall. And there's moats, but there's ways running in here, and a main egress here, but a sneaky egress here that can go to a hidden wall and a place to go into the back, and another one that comes off of here that can come in. It's pretty neat. All of this was wood on top of it, and a major portion was wood. And so in a time whenever people weren't destructive, see, we look back at Stone Age times and we say, oh, they weren't destructive like we are. And if you look at what they did a biblical kind of concept where God said with the power of him that you could take down a mountain. But also they built mountains, like the pyramids. You actually took down a whole bunch of little mountains and you built a mountain. It's a lot of symbology. People ask, why they build the pyramids, why they do this, why they do that, and everything, and they expect me to be some kind of guru thing on that. And we can look at why we would interpret that they built it today, but it's kind of hard to go on, and you get philosophical, and these people try to come up with stuff, and they built it for knowledge of the past, and da-da-da. Well, there's a lot of people who believe that the pyramids were there a long time ago, and that maybe that's even what they did, that they came there as a civilization in Atlantis, and then realizing that this thing had sacred geometry into it, they figured out sacred geometry somewhat, and then to make it so it wasn't so hard on somebody anymore, they wrote what they came up with as far as the symbology all over the walls. And of course that was lost all time till we found the stone that gave us the decipherment in a few different languages, and some that we actually already knew. And how about that? Here's a insight to it all. And that insight to it all, you can imagine these people had one idea of the way it went on. And as we found all these different things, they found out, no, it wasn't even like that. It was more like this. And then other people found out, no, both of these are true, and they were both going on at the same time. What the hell, yeah. And down here, they had more of a cult like this going on during this time and that, because we're talking spanning thousands of years. So, you know, and then you put it all together, and then people think of Egypt, and they get this, oh, and this one sound in their head of music, and they think that's, you know, and it seems like there's a whole lot more to it than that. And I try to expose a lot of it because I find Egypt somewhat interesting. I didn't really go deep into Egypt, and got sick of Greek real quick because everybody, seriously, goes Greek happy, and Sumerians and Akkadians, and then they talked about these Mitanni people or these, and I'm like, well, who the hell are they? And they go, well, they don't know much about them. And I go, well, what do they know? Oh, you know, who the hell are they, and where did they come from? And I more wanted to know more about that than what will let, you know. I've done the overview and cliff notes situation. Let's find out some more things. This is a site, and where I found it was taking a break, or trying to take a break. And the video game that I'm playing now, that I show you in some of the clips, Neverwinter has a new thing coming out, and there's supposed to be in this fight of Bel, or rise of Bel, that's happening into it. And I'm like, that's ball. And you know, I wonder what it really is in here, because of what we're currently doing. And I talked about with hell and these things going on, the dichotomy that's pulled in that is that he's going to be a demon type guy, and you know, Orcus and all these different things that other people, and even sometimes after the fact it's been destroyed and changed themselves, make into oh, you deify one group and you really make another one look bad. And how bad would it? Well, you can actually turn them into devils and demons and all kinds of silly crap. And you can take somebody that's an adversary, which is what Satan means, and make that run you wild in the point that you try to kill Flintstone here, right? Well, at the point that you're trying to kill Flintstone, guess what? You are Satan. What? Well, to him you are. You're his adversary all of a sudden, coming up out of nowhere. What the hell? You want my knowledge out of nowhere? Who are you? Well, we're just jealous and want your crap. That doesn't work too good. Then sometimes it didn't work too good. Man, I could just keep going off in left field, and believe it or not, and all of the little things that I talked about saying for 45 minutes to an hour, and leading in this with, I didn't talk about much. In fact, I only mentioned a couple that didn't even go into the story. Didn't talk about how I used to deal with horses, and how these people dealt with horses, or anything. I just talked about the lead-in and how I found it. Well, when I found it was this game demo thing, and I was trying to find it, the new mod. And over in the size, parked up Batman. Oh, and I love Batman, man. I grew up on Batman. My brother used to, and I used to put capes over his shoulder. He was Batman, I was Robin. It was on. And the thing that it was about Arkaim Knights. And ding, you know, all of a sudden triggered in my mind. And Arkaim is not Arkham, but Arkaim is the name of this site that's here. And knights can be knights of old, and Dungeons and Dragons and all that cool stuff I talk about, but knights can also be about the opposite of day, and what you would think about what people would do at nighttime. in these places. And then Fred Flintstone, what's he do? Well, he snores and he keeps Wilma up. No, these guys were astrologers and they were paying attention. In fact, before they built this place, they were so steeped in the knowledge that when they built it, all those little funky lines of an eyeball and things are lined up to solstices and all kinds of things. That, equinoxes and all these type stuff, even the gates, limit the amount of light that goes in a pinching effect, and it hits a certain vent that runs through and illuminates somebody that'd be standing here in the center only on one day of a year, and all these things they figured out. But they don't want to, well, we'll just get into it here, because I feel like now I'm just pissing away the article and talking about a lot of floaty subjects and ideas to most of you, and I've probably done all but the best of losing you on the ideas that I was gonna even explain about. But you can imagine this place burnt down a few times too, if they have huge kilns going in here and roaring away these fires. And even though they put a mud chimney around each one of them, that's what that is in this pseudo city, that it would have burnt down. And again, I find myself reaching back as a spider and telling you, these people that lived in a time before, well, most of their stones here are mud bricks, so they're not impinging, and the Sumerians didn't have a chance to. Would they have if there were rocks around? Well, I bet so. But what they were doing was they were making their own rocks. We do that today with cement and bricks and stuff like that. It's amazing. But they were making their own, even back then. And people say, oh, that's primitive. And it's like, well, we're doing that now. Well, they got cement. The cement's real old too, man. Just, there's a lot of things and everything. There were people that were putting stones together so good they didn't need cement. What? Yeah, and it predates the people trying to do the brick thing. Well, that didn't fit right. Yeah. Okay. This place must have burned down, had some problems and stuff. You come to find out, one of the articles on it actually says that they were able to form all forms of metals. And I think they wanted to tar and feather that dude too. Let's just get into this. This is Arkaim, Aryans, Advanced Astronomy, and Untold Secrets of a Russian Citadel. And then Asia. No, it's not Oriental. Many people think that, well, it kind of goes to Greece, and then there's some land, and then right on the coast, way all over there's China and stuff. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't work that way, really. And who were the people there in ancient times? And when it was in the last ice age and coming out of that and stuff, where was everybody? What were they doing? It's a lot different than people think. It wasn't Fred Flintstone. So Arkaim, and it contains the word ark. I'm never going to get to this article. It contains the word ark. And if you look at it a different way, it could be Arkaim. Linguistics of these people may have kept something along the line. They name it for a mountain right near there that has to do with something, and you're thinking ark lands on a mountain. What the hell's going on? Ark, what does that mean? Well, ark actually means arch. And the linguistics work with these people up here, and that has to do with something too. And we were looking at that thing a minute ago, and it had a crescent to it, and that's an arch. For part of it was incomplete, and for a reason. For some of these guys have figured out this whole works with the zodiac, and that whole side was people that were all hooked up to different ones, and it seems like these places were hooked up to, this was for certain zodiacal signs and all that, and it lines up to a time that they were leaving when they built it, and so that almost doesn't make sense in the timing, and they never dug deep enough. And one thing I don't think they mentioned in this article is this was all going to be washed away behind a dam, like they've done in a few different places. Where in one of my old videos that I did, I made one called Damn It, and I talked about how all these places, from Hoover Dam and all these places that wiped out anything that you could know that would be under there, and didn't necessarily wipe it forever, but putting it underwater, screwing it up like hell. And you're ever going to see it again? They're ever going to take that dam down again? When would that happen again? When would we be able to see these sites again? And some of these sites contain incredible places like this, and I believe they allowed them to stop the work that was on this for 10, 11 years, even though they had already started to build the superstructure of the dam in the first place. So it kind of showed importance to it, and enough people throws a fit. Arkaim, Aryans, Advanced Astronomy, and Untold Secrets of a Russian Citadel. Arkaim is a mysterious site located in Russia. Experts believe that the citadel, not necessarily the oldest feature of the site, was built between the 17th and 16th century BC. The other part says 19th. Another one says 21 BC. There's another thing that says this. There's this other guy that says the places that are around it that were supported by it are older, therefore you didn't dig down deep enough. Is it on another tell again? Is this one of these built on a built on a built and nobody looked? Or where are we at with this thing? Tried to look through it from points, but actually it came from looking at Arkham Knights and astronomy and what would they be doing during the nights. There was several reasons why Arkham stands apart from the Bronze Age settlements in the area, leading to the idea it was built by a separate group. There's controversy on exactly who the builders were and what they made the site for, and that uncertainty and vagueness has led some to fascinating, if not unorthodox, claims. There's another depiction of it, but strangely in this depiction they show one part of it raised up quite a bit and this wall running through the center of it that doesn't appear to have existed. There's no moat either, and the conjunctive site just becomes an add-on. So believe that it could have looked like this at one point and that, and then rebuilt to this and then that, and then here's what you're seeing now. The inhabitants of Arkaim. Although it's unknown who built Arkaim, archaeological evidence found at the site suggests that it was inhabited by people of the Aryan race. Specifically, it has been suggested that Arkaim's residents once consisted of members of the Shanastra culture, which is Indo-Iranian people of the ancient Eurasian steppes. We've talked a lot about these people, and people try to get to the point and they go, which ones were Aryans? Because these people say it was that, and these people say it was this, and other people say they're all the way over here. And then there's all that German thing and everything else, and you go, yeah, well, and then other people say it was Egypt and all these people, and the Bible stories are about their things, and da-da-da, and the Sumerians, and I go, yeah. Some people even say that it goes with Buddha and blue-eyed things and all this stuff, and yeah. The principal evidence for Aryans having lived at Arkaim is the discovery of horse burials following their style. Oh my God, this is going to go to part 2 even. I see that I'm at 35. I'm sorry I went off in left field there a little bit, guys, but hey, it's nice to take a horse ride and talk about things every once in a while. Now that we got back to the city, let's talk about Fred Flintstone's mall. This practice is described in ancient Indian texts and says that horses were buried with their masters of these great people, all into the Srinivastas and Mahabharata and these ancient tales, and some of them describe them, and you can get the idea of it. Being nomads, many Indo-European people had a strong connection with their horses, and it's not surprising for them to think that the deep connection would continue into the afterlife. Evidence of a ritual horse sacrifices has been found in stone necropolises unearthed in the Arkaim Valley that correlate to these people. And that's some of the sites that are dating back, and they're going, well, this couldn't have come before that because they got this. And there's a lot of weird connections. So one coming up, I'm going to do Goseck Circle, the oldest known solar observatory. Yep, it's not over here, but it's really a lot like it. But it's a lot like Stonehenge, but it's a lot like this, but it's a lot like Nabtaplaya, but it's a lot like Adam's calendar, but it's a lot like, yeah. So we're looking at this burial, and hopefully, yeah, you can see it. There's a body here, and these sacred horses buried here, all decorated up, and all this crap that goes with them. A little hook and little stuff that goes with it, and they show this weird depiction over here that looks like they had two horses on the top bunk, and the bottom bunk was a person, and then below that level is a third level. In that third level is a giant sawmill with a big lever or an axe stuck in the floor. I'm not even going to go there. Apart from its creators, another mystery is why the site was suddenly abandoned. There's some evidence of a fire, however, that may not have been the cause of desertion. Because the site was fortified, some people believe it was abandoned when the inhabitants lost a war. Skeletons have been found at Arkaim and in the expansive necropolises of the valley, but the human remains do not generally suggest death in battle. Well, it looks like they had a little floodplain that automatically happened right there too. And maybe when that dried up, they went to greener pastures. But sometimes Batman gets called and he don't ever go back to Gotham. Here's a picture of one of these burials, and just showing it from this height there, you can see that they're deeper than a shovel in the ground whenever they find, deeper than that, a burial. And the burials don't show any signs of war, though. Tall people. A particularly interesting find of human remains was made at Arkaim in 2013, an individual with an elongated skull. Oh, snap. The person may have belonged to the Samarti tribe. Oh, snap. Researchers believe that the alteration was intentional. It was, after all, a commonplace practice among groups who lived in the South Ural. It's also found worldwide. Nonetheless, the reasons behind this deformation are unknown, leading some to see stronger ties between the curious site of Arkaim and even extraterrestrials. So, yeah. The funny thing about the skulls in Peru, whenever they DNA checked them out, they showed out to the people over here in the Black Sea region, and the same type of people are showing up as being the skulls over there. Now, the strange thing is about those skulls is they don't have the same suture marks and things, and somebody who is an archaeologist and somebody who is a doctor has turned around and looked at that and go, well, this is not a deformation situation. Some kind of crazy kid was born that was some kind of elephant man or some kind of weird thing like that in any way, shape, or form. And then both of these guys have given you the point that, well, this isn't quite Homo sapiens, is it? There's a lot of things that have come out of that, and I don't want to go there any further. And we're about to hit 40, 45. It's going to switch to the next part. Hello, ladies. Hello, ladies. Well, you can tell there's a lady that's here. Recreation of what the people looked like in the area. That's pretty neat. Little blue ringed eye, but real dilated eyes for some reason. She's got an elongated head. You really can't tell. If she was to build a cloak out of a folded sheet situation, she'd have a little point back here on her head. Kind of a Phrygian cap kind of situation. Kind of a witch. She looked like a witch to you. There are other people that might call this lady a witch. If you knew she was able to brew up certain things and heal you and do stuff and didn't have to take and use the power of God to heal you up, would you say that she was in lieu with demons and she was a witch? Do you think there were people that used to? Though she's graying in her hair, there's still a tinge of that blondish auburn look in it. Well, who is this? That's a reconstruction of that Samaritan woman with the elongated skull. To date, archaeologists have found no jewelry, art, or obvious treasures at Arkaim. Perhaps they took them with them. Broken ceramics, bones and teeth of domestic and wild animals and humans, and a few stone and bronze tools make up the range of artifacts. Thus, Arkaim holds different value for archaeologists and the ruins and the curious nature of their layout. Here's another thought of that valley that flooded out every once in a while. What if it flooded real bad for some time and then droughted out a little bit and they decided to go to greener pastures? These people had the wheel. They hooked it up to carts and stuff. Somebody, not one of the archaeologists are there, are saying that this is slag from like iron, and that there are bronze tools that are in there, and all kinds of ceramics, of course, that are showing here, and that's artifacts that are found there, but that's nowhere near all. I mean, they found a bunch, but it didn't seem like they left that much stuff. I mean, it wasn't like it had been destroyed and some of the crap left, destroyed or even picked through and the people were gone. No signs of destruction ended the place, but it just seemed like they left with the wind. As with the mystery of its builders, there's also much confusion on Arkaim's original purpose. Legends suggest it was a holy city for rituals and ceremonies. However, it is evident that over time the location was also used as a fort. As with many ancient sites, it's likely that Arkaim served more than one need, and the main purpose probably changed over time. This is supported by the archaeological finds, which suggest that it was used over a course of millennia, and not some small gap that they give for it. Today, Arkaim suggests that they call it the land of towns, and due to its central location in relation to other nearby prehistoric sites and monuments. Now we find out it kind of stretches far up a river valley and has a similar ending. Here's one of the excavation sites, and if you look at the truck here and where they decided to park it and to walk in from that, and if you're going to walk up here to the edge of this site, there's sacred geometry that's hooked up into that. And even though they dug into it and laid it out slightly off of true north, which is here, and this road that's over here, I'm guessing. What? Well, this is actually the geometry you figure out where the moon and 45 degrees and the size of things. You start to see it everywhere. Going to get back to that series real soon. Arkaim is complicated and prearranged, has a complicated and prearranged plan. This is going to go to part 2. I should probably back it up and just tell you it's going to go to part 2, and part 2 will start right here. You'll see it as the primer for it, and I'm going to try to put it up in the top left-hand corner. We'll see you there. Peace.